Welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. We would really appreciate if you could give us a 5-star rating and leave a glowing review in the app where you are listening to these podcasts, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It'll help us a lot. Thank you. My name is Artem, and here is the news. For 161 days, Ukraine stands strong against the Russian invasion. Former German Chancellor closely connected to Gazprom and Kremlin, Gerhard Schröder, said that Russian President Vladimir Putin is open to a diplomatic settlement with Ukraine, reports Ukrainska Pravda. Schröder met Putin last week in Moscow. He said that the first success is the grain agreement and perhaps it can be slowly expanded to reach the ceasefire. Schröder also called the war in Ukraine a mistake of the Russian government, but emphasized that the settlement requires concessions from both sides, declaring the absurdity of the idea of returning Crimea by military means. In his evening video address, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy stressed that if Russia really wanted to end the war, it would not accumulate its reserves in the south of Ukraine now, and would not create mass graves of murdered innocent people on Ukrainian territory. Without naming names, Zelenskyy said that, quote, "It is simply disgusting when former leaders of powerful states with European values work for Russia, which is fighting against these values," unquote. Volodymyr Zelenskyy reacted to the news reports on the growing tensions in the Balkans, on the South Caucasus, at Armenia-Azerbaijan border, and around Taiwan. He stressed that all these situations seem different, although they are united by one factor, namely the global security architecture did not work. Quote, 2014 became a turning point. Then, in quite obvious situations, with Crimea, with Donbass, with the downed Malaysian Boeing, Russia avoided immediate and tangible responsibility, preserved business and political ties with the world. And now many in global relations believe that they will manage to do so as well, unquote. Zelenskyy said that there must be an effective global security architecture that ensures that no state can ever again resort to terror against another state. The first grain ship from Ukraine that recently reached the waters of Turkey has successfully passed inspection in Istanbul, reports Prямyi. The vessel with 26,000 tons of Ukrainian corn on board was checked by the representatives of Ukraine, Turkey, the UN, and Russia. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said that the next ships are already ready to leave Ukrainian ports, reports Ukrinform. He expressed hope that Russia would not take any steps that would destroy the agreements. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba suggested to the president to appoint former Prosecutor General Irina Venediktova as Ukraine's ambassador to Switzerland, reports BBC News Ukraine. Venediktova was fired on president's suggestion due to the high number of traitors among the prosecutors in the occupied territories of Ukraine. Irina Venediktova has never worked as a diplomat before. The Swiss authorities joined the EU sanctions package against Russia, reports Interfax Ukraine. Switzerland introduced a ban on import of Russian gold and gold products, which is the second largest source of export revenues for the Kremlin after energy resources. The country also introduced sanctions against the Russian lender Sberbank, freezing its assets. The Swiss government noted that none of the measures against Russia are directed against the trade in agricultural products or oil between third countries and Russia. The Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine ordered a mandatory evacuation of the population of Donetsk region to safe areas of Ukraine, reports Interfax Ukraine. People will be evacuated to western and central regions of Ukraine. Those who refuse to evacuate will need to sign a special form, acknowledging the risks. The General Staff of Ukraine informs that the Russian forces are trying to advance in Donetsk and Zaporizhia regions, reports Grunt Media. In the Kharkiv region, the enemy made an offensive attempt in the direction of the settlements of Bayrak, Husarivka. Hostilities continue. In the Slovensk area, Russian forces tried to advance in the direction of Dovhenke and Bohorodichne. They were repulsed and left. In the Kramatorsk area, the invaders conducted an offensive in the direction of Yaremivka Dolina, had no success, withdrew. In the Avdiivka direction, the Russian forces tried to advance towards Lozove, Pisky, Vesele, were unsuccessful and withdrew. According to the survey conducted by the International Organization for Migration, 60% of internally displaced people in Ukraine who were employed before displacement have lost their job, reports Interfax Ukraine. At the same time, according to the survey, 9% of IDPs had no income since the outbreak of the full-scale war. 35% said their household income has been less than $137 per month, which is less than the minimum wage in Ukraine. The International Organization for Migration said that the situation with IDPs' employment remains quite critical and is one of the reasons pushing people to return. There are currently over 6.6 million people who are internally displaced in Ukraine, which is 15% of Ukraine's general population. Education Minister of Ukraine Serhiy Shkarlet estimates that 641,000 Ukrainian school children are currently abroad, reports Osvita. The minister pointed out that there is a tendency for them to return. Since May, 30,000 Ukrainian school children returned. Our Patreon supporters get access to a cool new series on wartime life in Ukraine. To join the club, follow the link in the description below. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine. Thank you.